as we face those times where we get fearful and anxious, we know the story, and we know how it ends, and we know who wins. And I think Daniel, at the age of 14, 15, as a young man, got it. He understood it. And we talked already about the stages of deportation with, in 606 BC with the reign of Jehoiakim. That was the first attack. And the first exile took place with Daniel and his friends going to Babylon. Then 598 BC, the reign of Jehoiachin. The city was destroyed at that point. The king and his mother and the vessels of the house of the God were all taken. And then the temple destroyed, the city burned, and the remainder, that was 587. All right, now the design of Nebuchadnezzar. All right, this is verses, chapter 1, 3 through 7. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, until whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. For he gave unto Daniel the name Belshazzar, and unto Hananiah of Shadrach, and Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. Alright, so the king wanted the finest of the finest from that country, from Judah, to serve in his government and to grace his court. And we can already see, I mean, these are young guys, we can already see that these guys are already standing out in their own, among their own people. These individuals already have certain characteristics that have placed them as the best in their culture. It says, from this we may conclude that Daniel and his friends had a wide range of knowledge, were handsome in appearance, and had royal stock. So they were the learned in the communities. Remember, you're dealing with a time where it was very few, if you talk about literacy levels, at the time in which the Bible talks about it, you're talking about a very small percentage of people that actually read. And they were the elites in the community. It was, you know, they were the only ones that had access to any type of learning. Alright, so these folks stood out. And it says, and of thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away. This is from Isaiah 39, 5, 7. And they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Again, we see the Bible already giving us information that tells us what's going to happen. Alright, so the eunuchs were the leading men. They were holding positions of authority. You know, we think about the eunuch in Acts, the Ethiopian eunuch that said, here's a verse, I don't quite understand it. You know, these eunuchs had certain powerful positions in their world, in their government. The word translated eunuch was used in a broader sense. But basically, I think what we're looking at in terms of the eunuchs, they were people of position that were given powerful positions within their cultures, within the government. The king's design. Now, what was the king after? What was he trying to do? What's he doing? 3 years of education. Now, I don't know if y'all know this, but you talk about education. It's been in the news a lot lately because of the president's speech. The father of modern education, who was it? Horace Mann. Okay? He was one of the original guys that wrote the Humanist Manifesto. And one of the things that he recognized is if he, as part of his modern education system, was to remove God from the modern education system. So what was King Nebuchadnezzar doing?
Same thing.
Same thing. What did he want to do? He says, I'm going to put these most learned individuals in my system. And I'm going to teach them my language and my culture. And I'm going to just ease them on into it. So by the end of 3 years, they're going to be what? Indoctrinated into the system. Now that's what's happened. We wonder how did we get where we are today? Well, it's been a slow, incremental process where certain things have gone into place. Modern education. Very shortly thereafter, guess what? They no longer taught the Bible in school. It was removed. Elementary school kids were using all these biblical-based learning all through the early years of the education system. Disappeared. Prayer, Bible, Ten Commandments. Little by little, it all disappeared. And where were we? Alright, so we see the same thing taking place in the king's design was a clever device through which he had hoped to convert completely the Hebrews to the Chaldean way of life, intellectually, socially, and religiously. And guess what he uses? Diet, food, and drink. Christians deceived. We don't think we can eat whatever we want to. There's no consequence to doing that. But yet, if you go throughout the Bible, here we have it again. First temptation of man, what did Satan use? Apple. First temptation of Christ, what did the devil use? Bread. Now we look here. What are we using? Yeah, going to eat from the king's table. And we wonder, and y'all know, I get off on this, I'm trying not to, but I talk about it. How many times have we heard, you are what you eat? Well, what do we eat now? We eat imitation food. It's not real. The only real food that we have on this planet comes from God, not from somebody sitting in a lab going, well, let's see what we can create out of this potion. And then we wonder why our cells age so rapidly. And why all of a sudden we got kids dying of cancer. You know, the number one cause of death outside of accidents for kids now between 4 and 14 is what? Cancer. Why? What do they eat? Satan hadn't changed his tricks. He wants us out of the game now. He'll take us out any way he can. If he can get us sick, if he can get us dead. What was that saying? You're killing yourself with your teeth or something? You know, I mean, they've all been out there. We know what they are. But here it is again. We see what's happening with this king and how he's manipulating the situation. And then the next thing he says, they were really being permitted an unlimited indulgence, which was part of Nebuchadnezzar's brainwashing device. Orientation, a clever scheme to denationalize them, and brainwashing is being carried on today. Today, it's happening.
Mike, you know, if you take the smartest people out of a culture, like the Jewish, they're going to be the ones who are going to be the rebels, because they're the ones with the smarts, they're the ones with the brains. If you take them out, then those folks left behind are more content just to be status quo.
Yep. Easy followers.
Yeah.
And how did that happen in our culture? You take the Vietnam War. What was that all about? And who were the ones that led all the protests? They were the smart. They were the intellectuals, the highly educated. Well, guess who they are now?
They're the leaders.
They're the leaders. They're the professors. They're the ones that sit in Congress. They're the ones sitting. I mean, that's who they are. So it's amazing how things never change, isn't it? It's still the same.